battery is depleted, blue to blue, and then just push the switch. What's up, I'm Doug with Deanie in the garage. Hey, if you couldn't guess, today we're gonna be talking about some Power Wheels. For sure, we got some major Father of the Year vibes going on in this here video. Alrighty, friends, in this video specifically, we're gonna be trying to get this very confused tractor going. We got a John Deere C, a Case IH hood, all on a Peg Perigo plastic base. But the long and the short of it is, pick this up on the side of the road for free. It's even got the little trailer sitting out back. And I also picked up all of these on the side of the road for free. And every single one of these runs. But not a single one worked right out the box or off the side of the road, as it were. What happens is people buy these things new and they're expensive. Oh, are they expensive new? And the kid gets some amount of enjoyment out of them, and the kid grows up and these things stop working and they forget how much they paid at them and they just put it on the curb for the garbage man or some other jabroni like me to pick up. They don't care, they just want them gone. All right, now most people pass these by thinking they're a little old, they're out on the curb because they're junk, but the reality is the electronics in these are very simple. There's only about 5 things that can go wrong when they don't work, and all but one of them is super easy to fix. So what I want to do today is go over what I've found to be the few things that go wrong in these guys, and what I do to fix them. Let's get into it. Alrighty, friends, first and foremost, you are going to want to have a couple tools on hand, your usual screwdrivers and pliers and whatnot, and a multimeter. Highly recommend. If you don't own a multimeter in today's day and age, grab one. Alrighty, friends, now that that's sorted, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the issue. Underneath the hood of all of these Power Wheels, Peg Perigo, any other off brands, is always going to be a battery. They have this kind of plug. All right, they all have this kind of plug, whether they're Power Wheels or whatever, and they come with chargers that look like this. Just a AC wall charger with the appropriate end on it. This is from an older Power Wheel style. You can see the newer ones are just slightly different. The long and the short of it is the one you get on the side of the road probably isn't going to have this. No love lost. Doesn't matter. The reason is this battery is shot. That's why it's on the side of the road. 9 times out of 10, the battery's shot. Don't bother messing with it. If you want to prove it to yourself, though, go to Volts DC 5.8. I pulled this off the charger right before we started doing this video. So this battery is depleted. That's why it was on the side of the road. So we're going to leave this battery in. We're just not going to use it. We got to find a way to make these two match together. All right. Now, in previous videos, I've advocated for spending 50 bucks either on Amazon or at Lowe's or whatever, and build yourself a little electrical box that has a ton of the basics in it. Heat shrink wire, terminal ends, right? These are not crazily specialized tools. This is very basic stuff. Now, believe it or not, I use lamp wire a lot of the time to wire these things up. 12 or like 14-2 lamp wire, but I don't have any today. Alrighty, let's pull a little run of these two. Don't need a lot. And boy, these Pittsburgh wire cutters really leaving something to be determined there. What did I try to do something awful or something? Oh yeah, look at that. The good bits are ground right out of her. That's probably user error on my part. There we go, Christmas. And essentially what we're creating are 2 leads like this. Your configuration might be a little bit different, but I found the bullet connectors work great to fit down into the 2-wire connector that is going to be vehicle side that originally went to the battery. And then most, drill impact batteries are going to be able to take these blade connectors. So something like this, 12-inch wire. I like to either get heat shrink connectors or add some heat shrink to it. It just prevents corrosion from getting down in there if you keep these things outside, which you probably do if it was a free thing you picked up on the side of the road. Alrighty, friends, first things first, we're going to connect blue to blue. The bullet connector goes down in this connector here. I found you can usually jam them down in there pretty good and they will just sort of self-hold. Find a good angle for them. Might have to push the prongs to one side or the other. Like that. Perfect. And perfect. And then if you look on your battery, whatever battery you're using is going to have some labels up here. And you look, it says B plus and B minus. That stands for battery positive, battery negative, then you got TH, CI, ID. I don't know what all those mean. They're Bauer specific, but B plus and B minus can be on every battery. Here's one of my Cobalt batteries to show you. It's got just the plus and the minus, but you can figure that out. It's got less prongs, but again, plus and minus. Find those two, plug them in. I'm going to put red to positive. On this case, see all these blade connectors are going to index right in there. Beautiful. And this side. Now, moment of truth. Was it just the battery, or do we have more to do? Pedals over here. Oh, buddy, look at that. Oh, man, that thing was moving, too. So we're in 2. Let's put it up in 1. Slower speed works. These newer ones, you got to hold reverse up and then push. Holy Halliburton. Everything on this thing works so far. It was just the battery. They threw this thing out for the battery. But, there are other things that it could be besides the battery. All right, downstream from the battery is this switch. Let me take you over to a machine that's given me a bunch of trouble with the switch. Alrighty, friends, this is the clone of a Banshee or Raptor 700 Yamaha. This is by far my daughter's favorite one. Again, free on the side of the road. The battery was in there, but it was totally shot. You can see here some of that lamp wire that I have tuned up to blade connectors. I plug it right into that Bauer battery. It couldn't be simpler. This one is wired right down to, I think, the switch, which is down here. But here's the problem with this one. Here's the main switch that the kid uses. You know, this is the pedal. It usually has a little plastic pedal that comes up over there, but I worked on this switch so many times we just deleted the pedal. Now, you can see it's all contained in this box, but the top is not watertight. The bottom is. Or it has these drain holes and they plug up, I think. Whatever it is. These switches collect water, and they're all pretty much like this. You can see the same style switch where it's not sealed on top, but it is sealed on the bottom on these old, this is an old 90s or early 2000s Barbie Jeep. Even this really nice Polaris side-by-side one that's pretty much brand new. It's like a 2023. Has the exact same style things. It's not closed at the top, but underneath it's a sealed little box. And if you leave these things outside, they just collect water and then they corrode. This one was filled to the top with water when I brought it home. Battery didn't work. Did my little battery trick, but it still didn't work. And I was like, oh man, maybe this one's fried. For record, when I started this video, I told you that there's only one thing you can't really cure on these. And what that is blown out motors. I've never picked one up on the side of the road that had blown out motors. I've blown motors out, you know, messing around with bigger and bigger batteries. I've never blown one out with up to a 24. You're safe up to a 24. All right, now, these switches usually have 3 wires coming off. You got an in and out, and then I think this is a signal. Some of them actually have like a battery gauge up here. I guess in its original form, it would have given you the battery status. We had to do without that. So these switches will go internally, and there's no way to service them. You can get them on eBay really inexpensively. Look up the model of your unit you're looking for, you know, and then just do some wiring yourself there. That's what I've done on this one. And it works really good. It works great. Occasionally, I have to get this out and clean it out, and then clean up these holes. These are supposed to be drain holes. They just clog up with some junk. Anyway, point is, if your battery doesn't fix it, get down to this switch here. Okay? And what you need to be able to do, find continuity on your multimeter. It's usually the one that's got a little speaker symbol. And the way it works is it gives an auditory response when these 2 leads have continuity through them. So what you do is you take one lead on one side, one lead on the other side, and then just push the switch. That's how we know our switch is good. So, you got a battery in it now that has voltage, and you just confirmed that your switch is good. But that didn't solve your issue. You're not out of the woods yet. Your wheels are not spinning. Now, what's downstream from all this stuff? Well, in a lot of these, there's a speed and direction selector. We were kind of playing with it before. It's got 2 high, or forward high, forward low, and reverse. I have really not seen a situation where these go bad. Actually, ever. So I don't have a lot of tips for diagnosing them, but what I would say is, again, test for continuity through them or battery voltage through them. And if you're not getting that, then that's the thing. But usually I don't find any issues with continuity through that brain. Sometimes right before it or right after it, there'll be a diode. Testing a diode is actually a snap with the multimeter. Again, you're going to find the diode testing setting. A decent multimeter, again, this one was $12 and it has it. A decent multimeter is going to have a diode testing setting. On this one, it's actually the same as the continuity setting. That little triangle up against the line is the diode setting. And what that essentially does is sends electrons from your positive lead to your negative lead. All you need to do is set them up in the right direction on your diode, and you'll get a reading on the screen. Reading should be around 2 to 2.7. If you get no reading, try flipping them around. If you still get no reading, your diode is bad. Essentially, most diodes have a white line to indicate the negative side or some other evidence to show you which is positive and negative. Hook up positive, deep, deep, negative. I wish I had a diode, but I don't have one right now, and I'm not really going to cut one out of one of these machines just to show you. But they're downstream from the switch, usually. Even though most diodes don't look like this, the ones on these are encapsulated in this little like cloudy white plastic container. It looks very much like a super cheap inline fuse holder. Pull that thing out, pop it out, test the diode. Those you can also get very inexpensively to replace if you find your diode has gone bad. So your battery is number one that goes bad. Your switch is by far number two. All the brains between the switch and the motors, they tend to be pretty good. So you can usually, maybe test them a little bit, poke around, make sure that everything's connected. There's no corrosion, anything obvious. But the next step is we go right to the horse's mouth. Let's get to the back of the thing where the motors are. Alrighty, the motor configuration and how to get in there is going to depend on the source vehicle, but they all have one thing in common. You'd expect them to be built a heck of a lot better for what you paid for the darn things. Basically, go to the back of it, start looking for Phillips head screws. All right, on this one, you have to take out this bottom panel, which is connected to the suspension in there. It's a bunch of stuff you have to do. You got to remember, the newer it is, the less likely it is that they built it with you taking apart in mind. But get down to the motors, and you're going to test those. See if you're getting power to the motors. If you're getting power to the motors and they're not spinning, well, what was the one thing we talked about at the beginning of this? If the motors are fried, just cash the thing in. It's not worth replacing motors. There's another one free on the side of the road, 2 roads down anyway. Go get that one. It's really as easy as that. I want it to be more difficult. I'd love to be able to give you some really high-level electrical diagnostic tips, but look at the fleet we've been able to accrue using those methods. There's not a lot to them that goes wrong. I've said it 8 times in this video. I'd say it 8 more if I needed to. Check the battery. It's going to be bad. Go get you a drill battery. You're a DeWalt guy, go get your DeWalt battery. Go down to Bauer like I did, whatever. If the battery, or you put the battery in, and you know all the wiring's good, and you've got continuity down to the switch, test that switch. Those go bad too. I've had to buy a couple off eBay, and I haven't found a good, super duper inexpensive analog to use instead. So just use the switches. This is what it is. They're good, heavy, as Uncle Bumblefork would say, ka-chunk switches. It seems to me that the reason they go bad is water. Again, that's actually the same problem with the motors. You notice they don't put any drainage on the bottom of these things. And we all keep them out on the deck, out in the yard, out behind the shed. And so water makes its way down in there, and little by little it fills all the way up. So water is really what kills these things. All right, so we've got it running, but now there's another issue. Well, not a bigger issue than the fact that it wasn't running, but it's equally big. There is a non-electrical reason that these boys end up on the side of the road. The wheels, the more modern they are, it seems the cheaper and thinner the plastic is that they're making these wheels. And what happens is, if you're riding it on the pavement all the time, you get a little bit of wheel spin, and you just sand right through the wheels. All right, now there's a couple things you can do to combat that. This pink Jeep here is the oldest one in our collection, both physically, I think it's from the early 2000s or the 90s, and it's the very first one I ever picked up for my daughter, again, free on the side of the road. All it needed was a battery. That was it, but we've done the most on this one. And I noticed on the grass or on smoother pavement, all she was doing was spinning the wheels and just burning right through. You can see the back wheels look like this, while the front wheels look like that, and it's just from spinning around. So what I did was I got some bike tire, and I chopped it up, and I put chunks of it on there. I tried a number of different screws. The only one I found that doesn't pull out ever. These guys right here, these are for hanging like concrete board, you know, in the bathroom. And the benefit to them above any other screw is A, they got a self-tap-in tip that's great for popping right through rubber. And then they got kind of a double helix style thread. I don't know. I think that's why they work so well. I've used drywall screws and deck screws and multi-purpose screws and whatever else you can imagine, and they all eventually start to back out. These don't. So I'm going to get you some of these. You're going to need some inner tube. I actually lost the footage of me cutting the inner tube, but here's the valve. What you're going to do is take an inner tube like this, cut out the valve, and then all you got to do is pick a line. They've got a bunch of different lines running down them. I like this line right here, and just cut along that line all the way down. And what you're going to be left with is a big long strip about, what's that, 2.5 inches wide, 3 inches wide. So for that we use just inner tubes. I got these on clearance. I got two 26ers on clearance for $4 a piece. Can't beat that. All right, friends, so find the wheel you want to either patch or tractionize. We're going to be doing both. You can see this one's split right down the middle. See that? Whole split. Almost the whole wheel's split. All right? That's probably why she went to the road, except for the battery there. We're going to get our rubber, center it, just start driving those concrete board screws in. The other nice thing about these, the ones that I got, they're self-tapping. They got a little point on them there. I mean, you really can't go wrong with these bad boys. Started on some tread there, so she's nice. And there we go. No hesitation at all. It will bend the rubber if you overseat it, though, like I keep doing here. Probably have a screwdriver for that final one. The other thing these nail heads will do is give you a little more traction. Did I say nail heads? I meant screw heads. Alrighty, friends, and as you come back around, you start to overlap there. I like to overlap by 1 or 2 screws. There we go. Now, you saw some of them wanting to spin like that. You can fix that with the screwdriver. The drill sometimes has a little too much torque and it wants to spin it around. Let's put another one in the middle right there. Boom. She's going nowhere. Now, this, again, really going to be good for either inside use if you're using it in like a basement or something, a garage floor like this, you know, would be pretty good. If you are riding in the grass, or we got some baseball fields around here, sometimes she'll ride around. I'd recommend going to Wally World, get you some tire. I can tell this person, you can look at the tread, they use the exact same inexpensive 26-inch beach cruiser tire from Wally World that I did. You sink them in there. They use, look like deck screws, and they're holding, so, you know, rock and roll. There is something else we got to talk about. The elefante in the room. Now, in my opinion, what I've just showed you is the best way to get one of these things up and running for your kids' enjoyment. All they care is that the tires go round and round and they catch the ground and push that thing forward. But there's so much else going on out there. And what I'm just going to say it, it's dads building these for themselves. I crack up, man. They got digital voltmeters on the dash and everything. You put a 25 or 24 volt battery in, it's going to be around 24 volts, man. Like, what? Why do you need a digital voltmeter in the dash? Why do you need to replace the sticker lights with real lights? Your kid doesn't care, man. I know you care, but you have a car, right? So the other thing that I want to try to convince y'all of is just leave all that crap alone. It doesn't work anyway. This was the first one we had. And Eric does the same thing I do. And we were both into it on the first one. Let's try to make it super nice for the kid, you know? So we put in these things. Rheostat, potentiometer with some brains in there. What it essentially did was let you moderate the, control the voltage. So you're putting a 24 volt D-wall battery, a 20 volt battery, and do you want that kid to have all that juice or not? Well, the kid doesn't care. The kid wants all the juice, all right? If you don't want him to have a 24 volt battery, don't put a 24 volt battery in. You get 12 volt batteries, go buy one of those old Ryobi 18s, do whatever you want. The point is, and what I'm getting at is all that stuff makes these less reliable. That piece of crap kept this thing parked so many days because the fuse in it would go and then the wiring, they're cheap and they're chintzy. You can get adapters so that instead of having to wire it up the way I did, you slide your D-walled in. That works, but the wires that they send you on that pigtail are like 22 gauge wires. Your kid is gonna melt that. It's gonna melt right through it, all right? So, I know. All for the Instagram posts, right? Gotta do it. Oh man, what looks better than digital volts right on the, that one cracks me up. Your kid doesn't care about the voltage output. It's a 24 volt battery. Chances are it's gonna be pretty close to 24 volts. My last piece of advice is fatherly advice for you. And I pass this advice on to you now for the good of our society. The last thing these things are gonna need is a cleaning, all right? You don't have to do that. Your kid can do that. Something my father taught me is that nobody appreciates something more than something they had to earn or have skin in the game or sweat equity. All right, now you just spent the time dragging it home and getting it all put together. So you have sweat equity. You care if it gets left out in the rain and ruined, if it gets left behind your truck and run over in the morning because you didn't see it. You care. Get the kid to care. Give them the Windex. They can drink the whole bottle. There's nothing wrong with Windex. Just kidding, don't drink Windex. But it's perfectly safe. I give my kid Windex and Spray 9 all the time. And a thing of paper towels and say, it's new, it's for you, it just needs a cleaning. Let them clean it. And what you're doing, I firmly believe, if you want to raise them right, gotta start them young. You can't give them a multimeter, tell them to go chase the angry pixies around. That's your job. Get them to clean it. Gosh darn it. Now, not only have you instilled a love of four-wheel conveyance methods on your kid, not only are they now into Case IH tractors and Yamaha Banshees and Polaris side-by-sides and Jeep Wranglers, they maybe learned something about cleaning, caring for something. They got a little skin in the game, and I don't know, you're making a better person. I didn't need to give you that tip. I just feel very strongly. I know every time I bring one of these home, I get it running, and then I say, Tess, it's all ready. You can have it. It's a new executive producer mobile. You got to clean it first. And that's all there is to it, friends. I think this is one of the best things you can do for your kid. It gets you out in the garage, it gets your kid a cool new toy, and maybe even teach them a real good lesson about how to care for things and the importance of not adding to our throwaway culture. That's what we're trying to accomplish here first and foremost. The kids getting an awesome toy out of it is just a delightful secondary result. All right, so if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. What do you do to these things? Are you one of those guys that's putting the digital voltmeters in there? You think I'm a total jerk for calling you out on that? Or are you doing the same thing I am? Pulling these things home, get them running, throw some batteries in them, and just watch the kids out there enjoying them. Because I would much rather see my kid on one of these than an iPad. All day, every day, any day, you bet. So leave me a comment down there in the squawk boxes. Let me know what you think. What's your favorite one? This, even though I'm not a Yamaha guy, I'm a Honda guy, this is probably our favorite one. It's got metal handlebars. We didn't put any tires on the wheels on this one. Whoops, apparently the handlebars need adjusted. Because she drifts this one, and the wheels aren't going to make it much longer. They'll turn into this at some point, and then I'll do tires, and it'll be good to go. So leave me a comment down in the squawk box. Let me know what is your favorite Power Wheels you brought home. I think once this Polaris is running, that's going to be the guide. For now, it's the Yamaha. Breaks my heart to say in this Honda house. So be it. All right, as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.